Good afternoon one and all. So, yesterday we have started with fungi and we have dealt with the general characteristics of fungi and life cycle of fungi, highlighting asexual reproduction and sexual reproduction. Today let us begin with the understanding of different types of asexual spores and sexual spores, and we will also look into the fungal classification. So, here if you have to see the asexual spores which are involved in the asexual reproduction in fungi, first is motile biflagellate zoospores, okay, motile biflagellate zoospores and aplanospores which are non-motile, aplanospores which are non-motile, conidia which are non-motile exogenously released spores. They are produced from the tips of the conidiophores, okay. So, exogenously released, yesterday we have discussed, but then again once again I will be telling, see, from the mycelia conidiophores will be arising. To this conidiophores the sterigmata will carry out the conidia, okay. Sterigmata will release out the conidia exogenously, conidia will be released exogenously. And then sporangiospores. Sporangiospores are thin walled, non-motile, endogenously released sporangiospores. These sporangiospores are produced inside the sac like structure, those are sporangiophores. Inside sporangiophores, sporangiospores will be released. So, what are total asexual spores in fungi? Zoospores which are motile and biflagellate, aplanospores which are non-motile, conidia which are exogenously released from conidiophores, these are from the tips of the conidiophores, and sporangiospores which are released inside the sac like structure, that is sporangiophore. These are the endogenously released spores. And then if you have to see the sexual reproduction, in sexual reproduction the sexual spores which are involved, sexual spores of the sexual reproduction, first is oospores. Oospores are non-motile and endogenously released in oomycetes of Phycomycetes. Second is zygospores from Zygomycetes. And then ascospores which are produced endogenously inside ascocarps. So, this ascospores are from Ascomycetes class of fungi. Fine. Basidiospores are released, these are non-motile exogenously released basidiospores, non-motile exogenously released basidiospores from basidiocarps, okay. So, total once again let us recall the asexual spores and sexual spores of fungi. Asexual spores we have zoospores which are motile biflagellate, aplanospores, conidia and sporangiospores. Amongst all these, which are the only exogenously released spore, that is conidia. When it comes to sexual spores, we have oospores, zygospores, ascospores and basidiospores, ascospores in Ascomycetes, basidiospores in Basidiomycetes. Amongst all this, which is exogenously released spore, that is basidiospores are the only sexual spores which are exogenously released from basidium, okay. So, this is the complete gist of the spores. Now, based on what the fungi is classified, according to Whittaker's 5 kingdom system of classification, we know kingdom fungi is introduced in Whittaker 5 kingdom system of classification only. This kingdom is introduced in Whittaker's 5 kingdom system of classification. So, if you have to see all the 5 kingdoms in Whittaker 5 kingdom system of classification, we have Monera, Protista, Fungi, Plantae, Animalia. Amongst all these 5, which will exhibit highest diversity in metabolism, nutrition and respiration is the kingdom Monera. Same ways, which kingdom is highly diverse in morphology and habitat, then your answer should be fungi. Fungi is highly diverse in morphology and habitat, and you can clearly differentiate. Just now we have learned different types of spore formation, spore release, asexual spores and sexual spores. So, based on the mode of spore formation and fruiting bodies, we have on what basis the kingdom fungi is classified, on the basis of morphology of mycelium, mode of spore formation and fruiting bodies. On this basis, kingdom fungi is classified into 4 classes. First is Phycomycetes, second is Ascomycetes, third Basidiomycetes, and fourth will be Deuteromycetes. These are the different classes of kingdom fungi. From Phycomycetes, they have again 2 subclasses. Those are Oomycetes and Zygomycetes. Okay. So, kingdom fungi has 4 classes. What are they? Phycomycetes, Ascomycetes, Basidiomycetes and Deuteromycetes, of which based on the mode of spore release, here in Oomycetes it is oospore and in Zygomycetes zygospore will be released. Amongst all these 4 classes, which is the most primitive fungi? Primitive fungal class is Phycomycetes, which is algal fungi. Phycomycetes is algal fungi. Ascomycetes, sac fungi. Sac fungi. Basidiomycetes, which is the advanced class of fungi, this is also called as bracket fungi. Bracket fungi or puffballs. Bracket fungi or puffballs. Next, Deuteromycetes, where there is no sexual stage, perfect sexual stage in the life cycle of the fungi belonging to Deuteromycetes. So, these are called as fungi imperfecti. Fungi imperfecti. Okay. And Basidiomycetes, these are the advanced classes. Here there is no asexual reproduction or asexual stages. No asexual stages. In Deuteromycetes, there is no sexual stage. Perfect sexual stage is absent. Clear, right? And then Phycomycetes, which is the algal fungi. These are found in the aquatic habitats on decaying wood and as obligate parasites. Mycelium is aseptate. Asexual reproduction is through motile zoospores and non-motile aplanospores. And then sexual reproduction. Sexual reproduction is by fusion of 2 gametes. Sexual reproduction in Phycomycetes is of course by fusion of 2 gametes. Whenever fusion of 2 gametes is involved, 3 types of fusion can happen. It can be isogamy, anisogamy and oogamy. Isogamy, anisogamy and oogamy. Isogamy, where the 2 gametes are morphologically and physiologically similar. Anisogamy, where one gamete is anisogamy, where both the gametes, male and female gamete, they can be either structurally morphologically similar and physiologically dissimilar, or morphologically dissimilar and physiologically similar. Any of the one dissimilarity will be there, then it is anisogamy. Oogamy, the fusion in between motile male gamete and non-motile large female gamete is called as oogamy. So, these are different modes of reproduction. And then the products of sexual reproduction is oospore in Oomycetes and zygospore in Zygomycetes. As this is the primitive class of fungi, primitive fungi or algal fungi, it does not have the 3 stages of sexual reproduction. Those are plasmogamy, karyogamy and meiosis will not happen. Just fusion of the hyphae will result in the formation of zygospore in Zygomycetes and oospore in Oomycetes. So, here zygospore is formed, zygospore in Zygomycetes and oospore in Oomycetes. Okay? And these are the sites of meiosis. Zygospore here in and here in the oospore, these will be the sites of meiosis. So, spores landing onto the suitable substrata, again they will be germinating into new hyphae. So, this is all about the sexual reproduction in Phycomycetes. What happens? Fusion of 2 gametes can be through any of the means, either through isogamy, anisogamy and oogamy. After fusion, post fusion, this results into the products of zygospore and oospore. Oospore in Oomycetes, zygospore in Zygomycetes, where this is the site of meiosis, which helps in the formation of haploid spores. This haploid spores landing onto the suitable substrata will give rise to a new haploid fungal body. Okay? So, this is about the sexual reproduction in Phycomycetes. Now, coming to the examples of Phycomycetes, We have under zygomycetes, the best examples include mucor and rhizopus. Mucor and rhizopus under zygomycetes. Zygomycetes. Okay, mucor and rhizopus, rhizopus which is also called as bread mold, and albugo, this is under oomycetes. Oomycetes, best example is albugo, which forms white spots on mustard leaves. Then second class of fungi is what? Ascomycetes, which is sac fungi. This will exhibit great diversity in the morphology from unicellular yeast, which is Saccharomyces cerevisiae, baking yeast or brewer's yeast, to multicellular yeast, like penicillium, aspergillus, neurospora. These are the examples of what? Sac fungi, that is Ascomycetes. How you will describe what is the habitat and habit of this Ascomycetes? They are saprophytic, decomposers, parasitic and coprophilous. Mycelium is septate and it has what? Pore-like septa. Mycelium is septate and it has pore-like septa. Okay, mycelium is septate and it has pore-like septa. Fine. Next. And asexual spores, if you see, the asexual spore in Ascomycetes is conidia and zoospores. These are the asexual spores which are in the Ascomycetes. So, the special hyphae from the fungal body, the special hyphae which is originating, those are conidiophores. Conidiophores will be having sterigmata. Connecting to the sterigmata, the conidia will be released out exogenously. So, these are the special hyphae conidiophores. They produce conidia exogenously. Conidia on germination, they will produce a mycelium. Conidia on germination, they will produce a mycelium. This is asexual reproduction. Sexual reproduction, of course, again sexual reproduction is through what? Fusion of gametes. So, here ascocarp is the fruiting body inside which the fusion happens. Ascocarp is what? Fruiting body that is originating from the fungal body, fungal hyphae. So, ascocarp, which is the fruiting body which is originating from the fungi. This ascocarp, whose ploidy is haploid, inside ascocarp, antheridium, that is the male gamete, and female gamete, that is ascogonium. These two will fuse, antheridium and ascogonium. Post fusion they will form what? Ascus. Ascus is formed inside the ascocarp only. Ascus is diploid. Plural form of ascus is asci. So, this ploidy is diploid. Inside ascus, meiosis will happen. Ascus is the site of meiosis. Post meiosis, this will be releasing out the spores. Post meiosis, spores will be released. So, here if you see ascocarp, three different shapes of ascocarp is formed. One is apothecium, which is cup or saucer shaped, perithecium, which is flask shaped, and clistothecium, which is globose shaped. These are different shapes of what? Ascocarps, and inside ascocarp only fusion takes place. Post fusion, ascus, which is diploid, is formed, and inside ascus meiosis happens. Ascus is the site of meiosis. This will release the haploid spores which will germinate into a new fungal body. Clear, right? Next. Examples of Ascomycetes. Examples of Ascomycetes include Aspergillus, Claviceps, Penicillium, Neurospora, yeast, morels and truffles. Morels and truffles are edible fungi. Okay. Yeast, Saccharomyces cerevisiae, which is also called as baker's yeast or brewer's yeast because of its use in industries. Okay. Neurospora is highly used in genetic and biological works, okay, in laboratories. It is highly used for the genetic works in laboratories. Penicillium, from the penicillium only first antibiotic is being produced, that is Penicillium notatum by Alexander. Okay, so these are the examples of what? Ascomycetes, do remember. In Ascomycetes you can see diverse morphology of fungi from unicellular to multicellular level. Next is the advanced class of fungi, that is Basidiomycetes, the most advanced class of fungi. Basidiomycetes is commonly called as club fungi. Basidiomycetes is most commonly called as club fungi, where most common forms or noted forms of Basidiomycetes include mushrooms, puffballs and bracket fungi. Mushrooms, puffballs and bracket fungi are the most known forms in Basidiomycetes. And then they grow in soil, on logs, tree stumps and in living bodies as parasites. Okay, they grow in soil, on logs, on tree stumps and in living bodies as parasites. The mycelium in Basidiomycetes, if you see, it is septate and branched. Mycelium is septate and branched. Next, reproduction, if you have to observe, three modes of reproduction are vegetative, asexual and sexual. Of course, asexual reproduction is absent in Basidiomycetes. Vegetative reproduction is through fragmentation. Vegetative reproduction is through fragmentation. Asexual reproduction is absent and sexual reproduction is the most common reproduction in Basidiomycetes. And then if you see, so here in sexual reproduction, like how ascocarp is seen in the Ascomycetes, here in Basidiomycetes you can observe basidiocarps. Basidiocarp. From the basidiocarps, which are the fruiting bodies, here you can see the dikaryotic stage and post fusion basidium is formed. Post fusion, what is formed after gametic fusion? Basidium. Basidium is diploid and this is the site of meiosis. After meiosis in basidium, basidiospores are formed and released out exogenously. Okay, basidiospores are formed, spores are formed and released exogenously. So here you can see the hyphae, fungal hyphae which is haploid. Hyphal union has given out the fruiting body that is dikaryotic structure, and after karyogamy basidium is formed, and inside basidium is the site of meiosis, and after meiosis haploid basidia are being released. Haploid basidia which are released exogenously. So this is the sexual reproduction of Basidiomycetes. And then here if you see, as this is the advanced class of fungi, the fructification is large and conspicuous. Fructification over here is large and conspicuous. This is the most advanced class of fungi. So here if you see, agaricus is what? Mushroom. Agaricus is mushroom. Eustilago is smut fungi. Eustilago is smut fungi. Puccinia is the rust fungus. Puccinia is the rust fungus. Next, polyporous. Polyporous and lycoperdon. Polyporous is bracket fungi. Bracket fungi. And lycoperdon are puffballs. Puffballs. Clear, right? And then last class of fungi, that is Deuteromycetes. Deuteromycetes is called as imperfect fungi because there are no perfect sexual stages in this fungi. No perfect sexual stages. So here the mycelium is again branched and septate. Mycelium is branched and septate in Deuteromycetes. They are largely decomposers. Few of them are saprophytic and parasitic. So this decomposers, those Deuteromycetes members which whose mode of nutrition is decomposers, they help a lot in the mineral cycling. They help in mineral cycling, and the asexual reproduction is through conidia in Deuteromycetes. Very important to remember the sexual spores and asexual spores for each and every class of fungi. Okay, so the asexual spore in Deuteromycetes is conidia, and then here if you see, while establishment of linkages, that means what happened during classification of fungi is some fungi which are placed in Deuteromycetes, after clearly verifying the life cycle of those fungi, after observing the perfect sexual stages in that fungal life cycle, they are again replaced in Ascomycetes and Basidiomycetes. So, here if you see, while establishment of linkages, fungi with perfect sexual stages are moved to what? Ascomycetes and Basidiomycetes. Okay. So, the examples if you see here, best examples under Deuteromycetes include Coletotrichum, Alternaria and Trichoderma. So, that is all with all the classes of fungi. Tomorrow we will learn the tabulated version, complete tabulated version by revising all the classes with examples, asexual spores and sexual spores, and we will learn the tabulated form in one chart of fungi. And after that we will also look into the animal like protists, those are protozoans. So, that is all for today's class, and thank you.